Let me talk directly to you. Not the version of you that posts quotes. Not the version that tells people, big things are coming. I'm talking to the version of you that lies awake at night, running scenarios in your head, imagining success, imagining failure, imagining conversations that haven't happened yet. You think you're being smart. You think you're analyzing. But what you're really doing is stalling your own life. Overthinking feels productive because your mind is busy. But being mentally busy and being physically effective are two completely different things. And right now, your potential isn't being blocked by lack of talent, lack of opportunity, or lack of intelligence. It's being blocked by hesitation disguised as preparation. You tell yourself you're waiting for the right moment, the perfect timing, the perfect plan, the perfect version of yourself. But let me expose something uncomfortable. There is no perfect moment. There is no perfect plan. The men you admire did not start with certainty. They started with movement. They started before they felt ready. You're sitting there trying to calculate every possible outcome, trying to eliminate every possible risk, trying to guarantee success before you even take the first step. And life does not reward that behavior. Life rewards momentum. Clarity does not come from thinking more. Clarity comes from doing more. Every time you hesitate, someone less talented but more decisive moves ahead of you. Read that again in your mind. Someone less talented but more decisive is building the life you want, not because they're smarter, not because they're luckier, but because while you're calculating, they're executing. While you're doubting, they're learning through action. Overthinking gives you the illusion of control. It makes you feel safe, because as long as you don't act, you can't fail. And as long as you can't fail, your ego stays protected. But that same protection is suffocating your growth. You replay conversations in your head. What if I say the wrong thing? You imagine starting a business. What if it doesn't work? You imagine going to the gym consistently. What if I quit again? You imagine leveling up your life. What if people judge me? Let me tell you the brutal truth. They will judge you anyway. Whether you stay average or aim higher, someone will have an opinion. So if judgment is guaranteed, why not earn it while building something powerful? Overthinking is just fear wearing a suit and pretending to be strategy. It sounds intelligent, it feels responsible, but most of the time, it's just you trying to avoid discomfort. You want guarantees, you want reassurance, you want to feel confident before you act. But confidence is a result, not a requirement. Confidence is built after repeated action, not before it. The first time you do anything meaningful, you will feel uncertain. That's normal. The difference between the man who evolves and the man who stays stuck is simple. One moves while uncertain. The other waits for certainty that never arrives. Think about this carefully. When was the last time overthinking improved your life? Not planning realistically, not strategizing with deadlines. I'm talking about endless mental loops with no execution. How many hours have you spent imagining scenarios instead of creating results? How many opportunities slipped away because you were still thinking about it? The world does not pause while you analyze. Time keeps moving, opportunities expire, energy fades, and eventually regret becomes louder than fear ever was. Action creates feedback. Feedback creates improvement. Improvement creates confidence. That is the cycle. But you are stuck before step one. You want step 3 without step 1. You want to feel ready without proving to yourself that you can handle pressure. And the only way to prove that is to move. You don't need a 50-step master plan. You need one bold step taken today, not tomorrow, not next week. Today, your potential is not fragile. It doesn't need perfect conditions. It needs courage. Small, repeated courage. Send the message, make the call, start the workout, launch the idea, submit the application, speak up. The first move will feel uncomfortable. Good. That discomfort is the price of growth. The longer you sit in your head, the weaker your instincts become. The more you act, the sharper they become. Decision-making is like a muscle. If you don't use it, it weakens right now. Somewhere in your life, there is something you already know you should be doing. You don't need another sign. You don't need another motivational clip. You need movement. Overthinking is not depth, it's delay. And delay repeated long enough becomes your identity. You start calling yourself careful when you're actually afraid. You start calling yourself strategic when you're actually hesitant. You start calling yourself realistic when you've quietly accepted mediocrity. And that acceptance is far more dangerous than failure could ever be. Let's get something straight right now. You are not going to feel motivated every day. You are not going to wake up inspired, energized, and ready to dominate life every single morning. That fantasy you've been sold that successful people are constantly fired up and emotionally unstoppable is a lie. The truth is much simpler and much harder to accept. The difference between winners and everyone else is not emotion, it's discipline. And discipline means you move anyway. There are mornings when your alarm goes off and your body feels heavy. Your mind immediately starts negotiating. 5 more minutes. I'll start tomorrow. I deserve rest. That voice sounds kind. It sounds reasonable, but it is not your friend. It is comfort trying to keep you average. Because every time you obey that voice, you reinforce weakness. You teach yourself that your feelings are in control. And once your feelings are in control, your future becomes unstable. You say you want success. You say you want money, respect, strength, freedom. But wanting something emotionally is not the same as committing to it behaviorally. Emotion is a spark. Discipline is the engine. Sparks fade. Engines keep running. The man who builds something meaningful is not the man who feels like working every day. It is the man who works on the days he doesn't feel like it. Especially those days, think about how many decisions in your life are based purely on how you feel in the moment. If you feel confident, you take action. If you feel insecure, you hold back. If you feel excited, you start. If you feel bored, you quit. That is emotional instability disguised as personality. And as long as your actions are controlled by temporary moods, your results will always be temporary. Too discipline means you create a standard for yourself that does not depend on emotion. You train even when you're tired. You work even when you're uninspired. You keep your word even when nobody is watching. Because discipline is not about intensity, it's about consistency. Intensity comes and goes. Consistency builds empires. The gym doesn't care about your mood. Your bank account doesn't care about your excuses. Your goals don't adjust themselves based on your emotional state right now. There is a version of you that only shows up when it feels good. That version is unreliable. That version is unpredictable. That version cannot be trusted with big responsibilities. If you want to become powerful, you must become predictable in your effort. You must become the kind of person who executes regardless of emotional weather, rain or sunshine, confidence or doubt, energy or exhaustion. You think successful men don't feel fear? They do. You think they don't feel stress? They do. You think they don't have days where everything feels pointless? They absolutely do. The difference is they do not consult those feelings before taking action. Feelings are data, not commands. They inform you, but they do not control you. The moment you stop treating your emotions like orders and start treating them like background noise, your productivity changes completely. There will be days when you don't feel like training. That is the day training matters most. There will be days when you don't feel like working on your goals. That is the day your discipline is being tested. Weak men require inspiration. Strong men require standards. A standard means you do something because it is who you are, not because you feel like it. You brush your teeth every day without needing motivation. You show up to obligations without needing emotional excitement. So why are your biggest goals treated like optional hobbies? You cannot control how you feel every moment, but you can control what you do next. Action influences emotion more than emotion influences action. When you start moving, your energy follows. When you sit still waiting to feel ready, readiness never comes. Motion creates momentum. Momentum creates motivation. But you are trying to reverse the order. You're waiting for motivation to create motion. That's why you're stuck. Imagine becoming the kind of man who does what he says he will do regardless of mood. Imagine the internal respect that builds. The quiet confidence. The certainty. Not loud, not dramatic, just solid. Because you know, without emotion involved, that you can rely on yourself. That is power, not hype, not temporary excitement. Controlled, repeatable, disciplined action. Your feelings will lie to you. They will tell you you're too tired, too late, too behind, too inexperienced. But discipline answers with one response: move anyway. And every time you choose movement over mood, you carve a new identity. You stop being the man controlled by impulses and start becoming the man who controls himself. And self-control is the foundation of every form of success, whether financial, physical, or mental. Let's confront something most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Excuses feel good. They are comfortable. They protect your ego. They give you a soft place to land when reality gets hard. And that's exactly why they are dangerous. Because every time you use an excuse, you get to escape responsibility without feeling the full weight of your failure. You don't feel weak. You feel justified. You don't feel lazy. You feel unlucky. You don't feel unprepared. You feel misunderstood. And that emotional relief is addictive. You say you don't have enough time. But somehow you have enough time to scroll for hours. You say you don't have enough money, but you have enough money for distractions that don't move your life forward. You say you don't have support. You say you don't have connections. You say the system is against you. You say your past is holding you back. And maybe some of those things are partially true. Life is not fair. Not everyone starts from the same position. But here's the brutal reality: excuses don't change your position. They just make you emotionally comfortable with staying there. Every excuse shifts responsibility away from you. And the moment responsibility leaves your hands, so does your power. Because if it's the economy's fault, you can't fix it. If it's your parents' fault, you can't fix it. If it's society's fault, you can't fix it. But if it's your fault, now you can do something. That's why taking full responsibility is empowering, even if it hurts. It removes the comfort, but it gives you control. Listen carefully. You can have excuses or you can have results. You cannot have both. The man who builds something meaningful does not have a lighter life than you. He has problems too. He has stress too. He has doubts too. The difference is he refuses to use them as justification to stop. He experiences difficulty without turning it into an identity. You, on the other hand, might be building an identity around your struggles. You repeat them so often they become who you are. I'm just not good at business. I've always been bad at discipline. I'm not confident like other guys. The more you say it, the more real it feels. Excuses are subtle. They don't always sound dramatic. Sometimes they sound logical. I'll start when things calm down. I need to learn more before I try. It's not the right time. But if you look back honestly, how many times have you said those same words? Months ago, years ago. And what changed? The timing never became perfect. The fear never disappeared. The pressure never fully lifted. Because the real issue was not the circumstances. It was your unwillingness to step into discomfort without guarantees. Excuses protect your self-image. If you don't try, you can pretend you could have succeeded. If you don't commit fully, you can always say, I wasn't really trying. That way, if things don't work out, your ego stays intact. But that protection comes at a price. It costs you growth. It costs you opportunity. It costs you respect, especially self-respect. Because deep down, you know when you're lying to yourself. Think about the last goal you abandoned. What story did you tell yourself? Were you truly incapable? Or did you decide it was easier to quit than to endure temporary discomfort? Most men don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they lack ownership. Ownership means you stop pointing outward and start looking inward. It means saying, if my life is not where I want it to be, I need to change. That sentence is heavy. It removes sympathy. It removes drama, but it builds strength. The world does not reward potential. It rewards execution. Nobody cares why you didn't succeed. They only see whether you did or not. That may sound harsh, but it's freeing. Because once you accept that no one is coming to rescue you, something shifts. You stop waiting. You stop blaming. You start building. You stop explaining your situation and start improving it. Excuses feel safe in the moment. They reduce pressure. They give you something to say when people ask why you haven't progressed. But over time, they quietly shape your identity. You become the guy who almost did it, the guy who had potential, the guy who had reasons. And reasons do not build legacy. Reasons do not build wealth. Reasons do not build strength. Only relentless ownership does. You must become allergic to your own excuses. The moment you catch yourself saying, I can't, because you stop and ask, is that a fact or is that fear? Most of the time, it's fear trying to sound rational. The day you remove excuses from your vocabulary is the day your standards rise. And when your standards rise, your behavior follows. Because once you accept that every result in your life has your fingerprints on it, you stop searching for comfort and start searching for solutions. Let's talk about the emotion that silently controls more men than failure ever could: Fear. Not the loud, dramatic kind, not the life or death kind. I'm talking about the quiet fear that whispers instead of screams, the fear of looking stupid, the fear of being rejected, the fear of failing publicly, the fear of trying and not being good enough. That fear has stopped more dreams than lack of intelligence, lack of money, or lack of opportunity. Ever will you feel fear and you immediately interpret it as a warning to stop. Your brain says, this is uncomfortable, this is risky, this might hurt. So you pull back, you retreat into safety, you delay, you distract yourself, and then you call it patience. You call it timing, you call it being realistic. But if you're honest, it was fear making the decision for you. Understand this clearly. Fear is not proof that you shouldn't move. It is proof that you are standing at the edge of growth. Think about every major upgrade in your life. The first time you stepped into a gym, the first time you spoke in front of people, the first time you took a risk on something bigger than your comfort zone. Your heart raced. Your palms felt different. Your mind tried to convince you to avoid it. That physical response wasn't a stop sign, it was a signal. It was your body reacting to expansion. The problem is you have trained yourself to interpret discomfort as danger. But discomfort and danger are not the same thing. Your mind exaggerates consequences to protect you. It imagines embarrassment as catastrophe. It imagines rejection as humiliation. It imagines failure as permanent identity. And because you haven't built the habit of acting despite fear, you obey those exaggerations. Let me ask you something directly. What has fear actually cost you so far? The business idea you never started, the opportunity you never applied for, the conversation you avoided, the boundaries you didn't enforce, the chances you let pass because you didn't feel ready. Fear did not protect you. It preserved your comfort while shrinking your potential. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is action in the presence of it. If you're waiting to feel fearless before you move, you will wait forever. The men you admire are not fearless. They just refuse to negotiate with fear. They feel it and move anyway. They understand that fear fades faster through action than through avoidance. When you face what scares you, it shrinks. When you avoid it, it grows. Every time you run from fear, you reinforce it. You teach your brain that the situation was too much for you. You confirm the lie that you're not capable. But when you step into it, even imperfectly, something changes internally. You prove to yourself that fear does not equal incapability. You gather evidence that you can survive discomfort. And that evidence builds a deeper kind of confidence than any motivational speech ever could. Fear is often a compass pointing toward the exact direction you need to go. The gym intimidates you because you know you need discipline. Starting that project scares you because you know it matters. Speaking up makes your voice shake because you're not used to asserting yourself. The very thing that triggers fear is often the doorway to growth. But you keep walking away from the doorway because it doesn't feel comfortable. Listen carefully. Comfort will never build a powerful life. Comfort maintains what already exists. Growth requires exposure. It requires stepping into rooms where you are not the most confident person. It requires attempting things where you might look inexperienced. It requires risking small failures to prevent lifelong regret. And yes, sometimes you will fail. Sometimes you will look foolish. Sometimes you will miscalculate. But those temporary bruises are far less painful than the long-term weight of wondering what could have happened if you had acted. You cannot eliminate fear from your life, but you can change your relationship with it. Instead of asking, what if I fail? Start asking, what if I grow? Instead of asking, what if they judge me? Start asking, what if I outgrow them? Instead of asking, what if it doesn't work? Start asking, what if it does? Fear narrows your thinking. Action expands it. Right now, there is something in your life you are avoiding because it makes you uncomfortable. You already know what it is. That tension you feel when you think about it is not random. It is a signal. It is pointing directly at the next level of your development. And every day you delay, that signal becomes weaker, not because the opportunity disappeared, but because you trained yourself to ignore it. Let me expose a habit that is quietly destroying your momentum. You talk too much about what you're going to do. You announce your goals. You hint at big moves. You tell your friends about the grind you're about to start. You post quotes about discipline. You say, this year is different. And for a moment, it feels powerful. People nod, they react. They encourage you. And your brain rewards you as if you've already achieved something. That's the trap. When you speak about your goals repeatedly, you get a small hit of satisfaction without doing the work. Your mind confuses intention with execution. It starts believing progress has been made just because progress was described. And the more you describe it, the less urgency you feel to actually build it. You've already received validation. You've already felt seen. So the fire weakens, real power moves in silence. Not because silence is mysterious. Not because it looks cool, but because silence protects focus. When you stop announcing every plan, you remove external noise. You remove the pressure to perform for applause. You remove the temptation to chase approval instead of results. A man of action does not need constant reassurance. He needs measurable progress. Think about how often you've told someone about a new habit you were starting, a new routine, a new business idea, a new level of discipline. And then weeks later, it faded. Not because you lacked potential, but because the talking replaced the tension. You released the pressure before it turned into momentum. You satisfied the ego before earning the outcome. There's another danger in talking too much. The more people you tell, the more opinions you invite. Some will doubt you. Some will project their limitations onto you. Some will subtly hope you fail so they feel comfortable staying the same. Now you're not just fighting your own resistance, you're fighting theirs too. And if your foundation isn't strong, that outside noise will shake you. Execution thrives in quiet environments. When you wake up early and nobody knows. When you train consistently and don't post about it. When you work on your goals without announcing timelines. That's where identity is built. That's where discipline becomes internal instead of performative. Because when nobody is watching, your true character is revealed. You say you want respect. Respect does not come from promises. It comes from proof. It comes from results that speak so loudly you don't need to introduce yourself. Imagine becoming the type of man whose progress shocks people because they didn't see it coming. Not because you hit it strategically, but because you were too busy building to broadcast. Talking about goals feels productive. Execution is productive. There's a difference. One creates noise. The other creates outcomes. And if you're honest, sometimes you talk because you're afraid to fully commit. When you keep things in the idea stage, you can still adjust the story. You can still say it was just a thought. But when you execute, you risk real failure. And that vulnerability scares you. Silence forces you to confront your own standards. When there's no audience, no praise, no attention, the only reason to continue is self-respect. And that's the strongest fuel you can have. Because attention fades, applause fades, trends fade, but internal pride in your consistency does not look at the most disciplined periods of your life. They were probably quiet, focused, intentional. You weren't trying to prove anything to anyone. You were trying to prove something to yourself. That's the energy you need to return to, not loud ambition. Controlled execution. This doesn't mean you never share success. It means you earn it first. You build first. You struggle first. You learn first. Then you speak from experience, not imagination. Too many men are narrating a story they haven't lived yet. They're branding a version of themselves that doesn't exist. And when reality doesn't match the image, confidence collapses. Every hour spent explaining your plan is an hour not spent building it. Every conversation about what you're about to do drains a little bit of urgency. Replace announcement with action. Replace explanation with repetition. Replace validation with results. There is a different kind of confidence that comes from quiet work. It's steady. It's unshakable. It doesn't need to be loud because it's backed by evidence. When you know you've put in the hours, when you know you've kept your word privately, you walk differently. You speak differently. You decide differently. Not because you told the world who you are becoming, but because you became it without needing permission or applause. Before you worry about how the world sees you, before you chase status, money, validation, or recognition, there is a more important audience watching you every single day. It's you. And the truth most men avoid is this: they don't trust themselves, not fully, not deeply. You say you're going to wake up early, but you hit snooze. You say you're going to start training seriously, but you skip when it gets inconvenient. You say you're going to change, but your habits quietly remain the same. And every time that happens, Something small inside you weakens reputation isn't just external, it's internal. You have a mental record of every promise you've made to yourself and broken, every commitment you delayed, every standard you lowered when it became uncomfortable. And even if nobody else knows, that's why sometimes you struggle with confidence. It's not because you lack ability. It's because you lack evidence that you can rely on yourself. Think about how powerful it feels when someone else keeps their word consistently. You respect them. You trust them. You feel safe relying on them. Now ask yourself honestly, would you trust you? If you told yourself you were going to do something difficult for the next 30 days, would you bet money on your own consistency? Or would you quietly doubt your follow through? This is where real transformation begins. Not with hype, not with motivation, but with integrity. Personal integrity. Doing what you said you would do long after the excitement fades. Because excitement is easy. Anybody can commit when they're emotional. Anybody can promise change in a high energy moment. But identity is built in the quiet days when nobody is clapping and nothing feels dramatic. Every fulfilled promise to yourself strengthens your internal foundation. It sends a message to your mind. I am reliable. I am disciplined. I can handle discomfort. And those messages stack. They compound. Over time, they turn into unshakable confidence, not loud arrogance, not fake bravado, quiet certainty. The kind of certainty that doesn't need to prove itself because it's rooted in repeated action, but the opposite is also true. Every broken promise weakens your self-image. You start seeing yourself as inconsistent. You start expecting yourself to quit. You lower your own standards before the challenge even begins. And that silent self-doubt follows you into every area of life: business, fitness, relationships, decision-making. Because deep down, you're unsure whether you'll actually follow through. Building a reputation with yourself means setting smaller, non-negotiable standards and honoring them. It means deciding that when you say you will train, you train. When you say you will work, you work. When you say you will improve, you take measurable action. Not because it's exciting, not because someone is watching, but because your word means something to you. Stop chasing massive, dramatic change overnight. Start chasing consistency. If you cannot trust yourself with small commitments, you cannot trust yourself with big opportunities. The world will eventually test you with responsibility. More money, more pressure, more leadership. And if your internal structure is weak, you will collapse under it. But if you've built years of self-trust through daily discipline, pressure becomes manageable. Understand this clearly. Self-respect is earned, not declared. You don't wake up one day and decide to respect yourself. You build it by keeping promises when it's inconvenient, by finishing what you start, by showing up when you're tired, by refusing to negotiate with the weaker voice in your head. Every time you choose the harder but correct action, you are casting a vote for the man you are becoming. Imagine living without internal conflict. Imagine setting a goal and knowing without drama that you will follow through, because that's who you are now. That kind of stability changes everything. You stop second-guessing yourself. You stop over-explaining. You stop seeking validation. Because you've proven to yourself that your word has weight right now. Your future is watching your present behavior. The man you want to become is either being built or being betrayed by your daily choices. You cannot fake self-trust. You cannot borrow it. You cannot pretend it into existence. It is constructed through repetition of disciplined action aligned with your own standards. So the next time you make a promise to yourself, understand what's at stake. It's not just that one action. It's your identity. It's your internal reputation. It's the relationship you have with the only person you will spend your entire life with, yourself. And when that relationship is built on consistency, honesty, and discipline, you move through the world differently. Not louder, not desperate, just certain. Now step back and look at everything you've just heard. Overthinking has been slowing you down. Emotions have been controlling your movement. Excuses have been protecting your comfort. Fear has been misinterpreted as danger. Talking has replaced execution. And the promises you made to yourself have not always been honored. None of this makes you weak. It makes you human. But staying there by choice, that's what keeps you average. At this point, you don't need more information. You need a decision. Because information without action is just entertainment. And this was never meant to entertain you. It was meant to confront you. to force you to look at the gap between who you say you want to be and how you actually move every single day. Becoming a man of action is not about aggression. It's not about noise. It's not about proving something to the world. It's about control. Control over your thoughts. Control over your habits. Control over your responses. It's about becoming dangerous to your old patterns. Dangerous to procrastination. Dangerous to weakness. Dangerous to the version of you that keeps choosing comfort over growth. You will not feel ready. You will not feel fearless. You will not feel perfectly confident. Move anyway. You will have days where motivation disappears. Execute anyway. You will hear that voice offering excuses that sound logical and safe. Ignore it anyway. Because every time you choose disciplined action over temporary emotion, you shift your identity. And identity is everything the world does not change when you announce your goals. It changes when your behavior changes. Your bank account does not respond to intentions. Your body does not respond to wishes. Your future does not respond to talk. It responds to repetition. Daily, consistent, sometimes boring repetition. That is where transformation hides right now. There is a version of you watching. The stronger version, the disciplined version, the focused version. And that version is built by what you do next, not by what you felt during this speech. You can close this and go back to your usual routine. Or you can let this be the moment where you stop negotiating with weakness. No more waiting for the perfect time. No more rehearsing success in your head. No more explaining why it hasn't happened yet. You either act or you accept. You either build or you blame. You either evolve or you repeat. The path is not complicated. It is uncomfortable. And that's why most people avoid it. But you're not here to be most people. You're here because something in you is tired of potential without progress. Tired of plans without execution. Tired of knowing you could do more and choosing not to, so make it simple. Today you act. Tomorrow you act. The next day you act. Not dramatically, not emotionally, just consistently. You build a reputation with yourself. You face fear instead of retreating. You replace talk with work. You replace excuses with ownership. You replace hesitation with movement. And one day, you will look back at this version of yourself, the one who almost stayed comfortable, and you will realize this was the turning point. Not because you felt inspired, but because you decided to become a man of action and proved it with what you did next.